Hi, everybody, and welcome to Chemistry B. Most of you know me, I'm Mr. Rosa. For those of you that don't, I'm going to be your chemistry teacher for the second half. I want to go through today and talk about what goals I kind of have outlined for us and what the expectations for this class are. Okay, especially with us being in the COVID-19 pandemic. First is our goals. These are kind of the endpoints that I'm shooting for this class. First is continuing from Chemistry A. I want us to continue our exploration through the concepts of periodic trends, chemical reactions, and chemical quantities, along with energy and several other things such as, if we have time, we'll get to nuclear reactions, and a few other things like that. Next, I want to continue the focus and emphasis on key scientific skills and approaches. Next, as I mentioned, to continue expanding on concepts previously learned in chemistry. Now, these could be things that we talked or learned about in Chemistry A, or we could be going back and re-emphasizing things from physical science or from 8th grade science or 7th grade science or whatever. But we're going to be taking that information and we're going to be diving deeper into it. Lastly, and those of you that have me have already heard this, but I'm going to repeat it because this is my approach to science. My approach to science is based on the idea that science is not a subject. It is not the idea of chemistry and equations and all that stuff. Science is a way of thinking. And that is my approach to this, is that we will be continuing to integrate scientific thought and especially evidence-based approaches into the understanding of the principles and interactions of chemistry. Resources. So, these are the things that you either will need or should have access to for the class. First is what you will need, and you should already have this, whether you had myself or Mrs. Rebecca as your teacher. You should have a binder for this class specifically. Yes, I'm not going to be giving you anything physical right now, seeing as how we are remote. But when the time comes, you should have some way to store this material when we do go back to being in person. Next, you will be taking notes. You need to have a notebook for this class specifically. So that's where you'll keep your thoughts and ideas and all the information for chemistry. You should have something to write with. This is part of, the whole coming to class prepared thing. I have extra stuff, but I only have so much. I expect all my students to come in ready to go. Lastly, for what you need to have access to a computer. I understand that this is an issue for some people, but this is something that you need. If you don't have one, the school will provide one for you. But if this is an issue, you need to talk to me about it immediately. Okay? You need to be able to do the work at home, which means you will need a computer. Next is a few things that students should have access to, though it is not required, but they are helpful. You should have access to your own colored pencils or markers. Coloring tools are fantastic when it comes to science because it helps us differentiate one thing from another. If you have access to graph paper or extra line paper, that's great. It will be helpful when the time comes to do some graphing and data analysis. And lastly is a printer. Now, I'm not saying for everybody to run out and buy a printer right now, but if you have access to one, it will make your life a whole lot easier. Okay? All right, moving on. We will be taking one of two approaches depending on the state of things at whatever given time. These are the remote and the college model approaches. So obviously, due to the circumstances that we are currently facing, with the increased infection rate for COVID, we are going to be learning remotely for the foreseeable future. Officially, we will be going back on December 9th, after the 3-week pause is over. Unofficially, we don't know what's going to happen yet. Be prepared to be working remotely for the foreseeable future. Once things do return back to a relative normal and we can come back to being in person, we will continue the college model approach that we began during the fall trimester. I want to emphasize something, and I'm going to emphasize this several times, because there's a lot of people that don't have an understanding, especially of what college model means. For both styles of learning, you have class five days a week. The idea of the college model is it is approaching a class the way that you should be approaching a class for college. If and when you do go to college, you're not going to have class every single day, but you will have a sizable workload that needs to be done at home. That is the same idea now. You don't have physical class 5 days a week, no. So you might not be physically present, but there is still classwork that needs to be done. I will tend to be doing my notes, which I'll talk about here on the next slide, at home. And you need to be ready to come into class with that stuff done. For these two models, for remote, classes will meet via Zoom twice a week, depending on hour. For first, second, and third hour, it is Monday, Thursday. Fourth, fifth, and sixth, Tuesday, Friday. There will be time for working one-on-one with me during office hours, which I'll talk about here towards the end. For a college model, we will be physically meeting in class 2 to 3 times per week based on your assigned track and based on what week it is. Having maroon weeks or gold weeks or whatever. But to reemphasize, just because you are not physically present or just because you are not on Zoom with me, you have class 5 days a week. Make sure your remote work gets done. For our online resources, there are 2 main ones I'm going to talk about right now, and as needed, we'll bring more up. So first is, as a school, we're going to continue heavily relying on Schoology. Everybody should, at this point, be at least familiar with it. The website, riverview.schoology.com. So we will be continuing to use this as our main platform. Make sure that daily, you are checking the schedule, the calendar, and your assignment due dates daily. All right, this is where you'll know what you need to do, when, and how. Next, I'll be continuing to try to use Edpuzzle. I started using this at the end of last trimester, and I'm going to be utilizing this to focus on the flipped classroom model, which means that your time at home will be when you're doing your notes. Our time together will be when we're taking time to practice the material and do any other assignments that will help emphasize the material, along with going over notes and questions and things like that. And the links and codes for these will be posted on Schoology once they are ready. And as I said, as needed, there will be more resources that are posted. So for instance, specifically for chemistry, we will use a lot of simulations through a website called PHET, P-H-E-T, and other resources like that. Next is my expectations for COVID-19. So these are expectations that are specific for our current circumstances. Students have class 5 days a week. On your in-class days, so when you're on Zoom or when you are physically present during the college model, you're expected to be present and ready to learn during class. On your remote days, this is when you will do remote or asynchronous work that needs to be finished on your own time and ready for class. So you need to finish this work on your own time and have it ready to go. There will be things that we will go over, or we will emphasize, or we will take questions on in class. So you need to be ready with it when the time comes. And as I mentioned earlier, you need to be checking Schoology every single day. Students need to check every day. With the access to technology that we currently have, and with the amount of effort I'm putting in to make sure that stuff will be updated starting tomorrow, I wasn't told or I didn't know is not a valid excuse. I'm going to make sure that I will mention what you need to do in class. I will make sure that there are schedules posted. I will make sure that there's calendar information posted and due dates are up to date. I didn't know is not an excuse. Lastly, as I said, students need to have access to technology. If this is an issue, if you don't have a computer that you can use, if you don't have a laptop that you can use, talk to myself or your counselor as soon as possible, and we will hook you up with what you need. But you need to let us know. Now, getting into my general philosophy as a teacher. First and foremost, students need to be focused on the task at hand. With the way that your brain works, multitasking, the way that we think about it, isn't really a thing. Your brain can't focus on more than one thing. There's a reason why I'm not watching a video while I'm doing this. So, this means whether you are on Zoom with me or whether you are physically in class with me when we start back with the college model, electronics need to be put away during class. I will start taking them, and I have an electronics contract that I will walk through if that needs to happen. Okay? But I've watched too many kids fail because you can't disconnect yourself. You need to have your headphones and your cell phones and every other electronic device put away unless you specifically need it for what we're doing. Next, your assignments need to be done and submitted by the posted date. All right? We will be using this information in class as needed, so you need to be ready to roll with it. Okay? Your stuff needs to be done and submitted by the posted due date. Once we're in class, I expect you guys to remain in your assigned seat until dismissed. My philosophy, and you guys will start hearing this a lot from me, is what I call from bell to bell. From the starting bell until the ending bell, you are mine. And I am going to be very defensive of the time that we have together, especially now since it is very, very limited. So you need to be present and active when you're in my class. And for this remain in your assigned seat thing, that means you need to be on Zoom until I dismiss you as well. That's why I'm so picky about the cameras, and that's why I'm so picky about responses, is you're not just going to get up and walk away, because that's going to be a recipe for disaster for you. Once we return to class, and I haven't seen this as an issue, but I do still need to state it for safety reasons, stay out of drawers and cabinets in my class. You don't know what's in there. There could be something that is hazardous. Unless I tell you otherwise, don't go in them. There's absolutely no food allowed in my class. There is no eating in my class. It's a science classroom. You don't know what was on the desks before you walked in. You don't know what experiments people have done. Plus, I like to keep my room rodent and vermin free. So, no food. Drinks, I'm a little bit more lenient on. As long as they are in a resealable container. And even that, I've been kind of lenient on, seeing some of you guys walk in with Starbucks and whatnot into class. But if I start seeing stuff get spilled and stuff starting to be an issue, I will crack down on that as well. And lastly, this bullet's rather long, so I'm going to break it down into its main point. You guys are high schoolers. You guys are young adults. That means that you are at a certain level of responsibility. Obviously, as your teacher, I'm going to do my best to keep track of you and keep track of what's going on in your life. But you're young adults. You need to advocate for yourself. If you miss a day, it is your responsibility to come and talk to me about what you need. I'm not going to hunt you down. It is your responsibility to let me know what is occurring in your life. If you come down with an illness, or if there's a family emergency, or whatever happens, it is your responsibility to let me know what is going on. Okay? It is your responsibility as a young adult to make sure your voice is heard, and it is your responsibility to notify me or speak up if you have an issue. I'm not going to hunt each and every one of you down. It's your job as a young adult to come to me Next is the quarantine expectations. So, we are moving into a very precarious season right now in terms of illness. Not only do we have a spike in COVID cases in our area, but we are also moving into the normal cold and flu season. I'm not going to say that people are immune. I'm not going to say that there's 0% chance that you're going to catch it. That's why we're taking precaution to make sure that people stay healthy. It is possible that somebody in your household or yourself could contract COVID-19 or some other illness. If this is the case, you need to take the matter seriously. Your first priority should always be your health and getting better if you are sick. Okay? I don't care if you're sick or not. You should always focus on your health. If you are sick, don't come to school. Simple as that. That is the main way that people focus on your health. If you come down with a sickness, if you come down with an illness, if you come down with COVID-19, if you are showing symptoms, stay at home. Do not come to school. If you are sick, stay at home. What you can do, because we are utilizing the Schoology platform, all your work will be available remotely. Students should do what you can when you can, especially when you're quarantined. And especially when it comes to COVID-19, because the symptoms are extremely varied, people have tested positive for COVID-19 with no symptoms and have shown no symptoms during the duration of their illness. Other people have gotten so bad that they need to be put on ventilators. If you're sick, if you're quarantined, do what you can remotely. And you and I will work out the details individually when I see you next or when you communicate with me. As I said, all material will be accessible through Schoology. Special arrangements can be made for tests, quizzes, projects, other large assignments that are missed. But remember, it is your responsibility to make me aware of these issues. If you are quarantined, don't assume that I heard about it from somebody else. You have to tell me, or I'm not going to know. We will discuss changes to due dates as needed. But once again, that is your responsibility to keep me in the loop. Now, here is your weekly schedule on a day-to-day basis. You are still expected to be doing school from 7:35 until 2:35 every day. From 7:35 to 8:55, you are working on stuff independently. Some independent coursework, getting stuff finalized and ready to go for whatever classes you have that day or working on whatever you need to. The block from 9 until 12 every day, so that 3-hour block, is when you will be meeting with your teachers live. Okay? Mondays and Thursdays, from 9 to 9:55 is first hour. 10 to 10:55 is second hour. 11 to 11:55 is third hour. Tuesdays and Fridays, 9 to 9:55 is fourth. 10 to 10:55 is fifth. 11 to 11:55 is sixth. After that, you have lunch for an hour. After that, from 1 until 2:35 is essentially it's more independent work time. So it's time for you to work on your coursework, but this is also the time where I will have office hours available. I'm going to require you guys to sign up. I'll be posting a sign-up sheet along with the hours that are available once more information becomes available. Okay? But this will be time for you to get extra support. Lastly is Wednesdays. Wednesdays are a little bit different. Wednesdays are going to be a flex day. For now, I'm treating them as dedicated office hours or student help time. But as more information becomes available, I will let you know what the plan for those specific Wednesdays are. Okay? For the first day of class, which everybody is required to attend, I plan on going over this information a little bit more in depth because, hey, I know not everybody's going to view this video. If you have any questions, please come prepared with them to class. There will be more information available tomorrow. All right, so until then, I'll see you guys.